Next, I want to focus on the eye and bring up the level of detail in the head. So our first objective is to define the face loop. The face loop is between the brow and between the brow where the eye meets brow and where the ear meets the brow, somewhere in between here. And this is going to be a full poly loop. Okay, so that's our face loop. Now, from there, we want to figure out where the eye is going to be and have at least 8 edges coming into the eye so that we can round that out. So we need at least 8 to round that out. The lower outer corner of the eye will meet the upper outer corner of the mouth. So the mouth is going to be somewhere in here. And that corner meets the outer corner of the eye. And then from there, we might make additional cuts across the muzzle in order to extend the face. The ear hole is an important object, important to identify, because the eye is going to connect with it. It's going to just straight shot right to the ear. And then the nose will form straight from where the eye is. And then we'll do whatever means necessary to form the nose. So it's critically important that we identify where the eye is. We need to see that. We need to know where the ear is. And we need to know where the mouth is. As long as we know where those 3 things are, the rest of it can be figured out. And what I mean by identify them, I mean identify the polygon that becomes the eye, the polygon that becomes the ear, and the 1 to 3 polygons that becomes the mouth. Let's begin by adding edges that support the contours. And let's do this with the edge flow turned on. And I'm just doing a control middle click, and then I'll take time to match contours on the front view, on the side view. Make sure that this edge, this one that's behind the eye, make sure it is behind the eye. Okay, and then make sure that the vertices of this one lead the brow. All right. So this is where the expressions will occur when the dog furrows its brow, or when the dog raises its brow, right? This is where the expressions happen. So make sure that this is in the correct neutral position. Okay, this is where I'm at. Again, this one is in front of the ear. This one is behind the eye. This one defines the face loop, the separation between the plasticity. Okay, so this part of the dog's face is very plastic, and then this part of the dog's head here is very rigid, and then back to flexible. So we're really thinking about what's going to be plastic, what's flexible, malleable, and what isn't. Again, spend time in the front view to make sure that we're not too far off. In order for us to extrude the eye and articulate contours from the front view, we need to there we go, trying to identify it there. There's the front of the head. So in this polygon, in this area, this is where the eye will be, that one right there. But of course we can't use that one because it would butt up against the center line. If we extrude that one, then we end up creating 2 6-edge poles. So this is not good enough. Well, it turns out that we need geometry running down the length of the body anyway, and we're going to need that in the nose and the rest of the body. So at this point, multi-cut control middle click right down the length of the body using edge flow turned on. Let's actually use edge flow at about 50%. 50-60%, somewhere in there, so it's not too crazy. And then in order for us to articulate the remaining parts of the body and the head, we could eventually split horizontally. I'm less inclined to do that at the moment. Let me work with what I have right now because I just added a lot of points to the mesh. But this does bring me to the lesson that allows me to identify where the eye is going to be. So I now know that that polygon right there, checking front view, checking side view, right-hand view, that's where the eye is going to be. And I need to simply move these vertices downward just a bit. There. kind of a diamond-like shape for the eye. Go back to front, confirm that, select it, and there it is. There's the eye. Front view and right-hand view. That's going to be the eye. Let's run rebuild sim, selecting the middle line, rebuild symmetry, done. Starting to see the dog's head, huh? Not bad. Starting to come through. Let's make sure that that jaw is articulated well. I don't quite see the jaw. And I have enough geometry here where I could at least see where the jaw, this round ball part of the jaw, sticks out a little bit. So that vertex right there, switching to the front view, that one would come outward a bit, matching contours. And then its neighbors behind it would be tucked in just ever so slightly. Yeah, I really want that one to come outward. And as I increase geometry, I'll be able to articulate that really good. Oops, keep doing that. Yeah, that one's definitely the jaw. Let me take a moment and continue to refine contours. The nose is becoming more clear. This will definitely be the identifying mark of the dog. Another landmark that we want to correctly articulate. Let's get back to the eye. So here what I have done is I've moved the vertices of the eye larger than the eyeball itself, the eye socket itself, because this group of this perimeter around the eye represents the whole of the eye socket and eye muscles. So we want to extend it further so you can see the tissue in the drawing coming way down here. So we want to find those extreme positions of that ocular muscle. And the reason's because we're going to take this polygon and extrude it and offset it and then bring it in, you see. So what we get is this polygon that represents where the eye hole will be, fitting the eyeball in. And then this one, these represent the various rings of muscle allowing for expression around the eye. Now, here's the other part. I told you earlier that once you know where the eye is, or at least I think I said this earlier, but I'll say it now. Once you know where the eye is, you can find the ear and the mouth. So if we walk our way up, following these polygons, we can find that the ear hole should be on this polygon. Even though this polygon, for the moment, is over where obviously the ear is. So what we want to do, and let's use edge slide for this, edge slide. What we want to do is just slide these edges down. All right, so that, and give a little room, so that this polygon now becomes the ear hole. Same deal. Let's extrude it and offset it. And we'll leave that alone. Now we know also where the mouth is. We know that the mouth will be somewhere following this edge loop. So if we trail this edge loop down, we can find somewhere in this area is the mouth. So of course the drawing, the corners of the jowl are right here. The dog of course can pull its jowl way back here, but for the moment, and articulating him as a still object, we want the jowl corner to be right here. So if we follow this corner down, we're approximately where we need to be. And we'll pick up right here on the next hour with the mouth. Now I'm unable, in my current configuration of matching contours, I am unable to make this or this into a mouth. And well, I suppose I could force it. I could find a way. But what I see is something more like this. So here's a simple loop that I could use to identify the mouth. Unfortunately, I tucked those vertices way up here. So what I'm going to do is move these vertices, turn on my edge slide off, move these vertices away, okay, which greatly distorts the nose, but that we will fix later. And this allows me to identify the corner of the box. You see this one right here where 3 edges come to it? You always know that that one's the corner of the original box because it has 3 edges coming into it. So there's the corner of the box, and here's the corner of the box. And the other corners of the box on the opposite end are on the tail. So what I want to do is split the body full length all the way across. I'm going to need to anyway. And this will assist me in finding the mouth. So here's the multi-cut tool, Control, middle click. Now I think it's even easier to see where the mouth might be. So here, let's select this chunk. Oops, this piece. So it looks like the mouth might come from here. You might be thinking, oh, let's make the mouth from that one, right? Because we could just open it up right there and that could become the mouth. Again, I think that's a problem because of this point right there. Down the road, this intersection would cause issues on deforming the mouth. So what I want to do is actually split it open between here to here, somewhere between there to there. Now if you're wondering how we're going to get the nose back, we would simply take what's up here in the front in polygons and perform an extrusion and offset that extrusion so that we then have vertices to articulate where that nose is. You can see how easily that came back together again. It's not bad. Now optionally, I may not want to have one more edge loop running all the way along the length of the body, right? So that gives me one more to deal with all the way down the length of the body. That could be good, that could be bad. If I'm trying to maintain this level of detail, and currently I am, I don't want it to get any denser along that area just so that I can articulate the mouth more clearly. So what's my solution? My solution is to keep the problem local to the head. How do we keep that local? We use extrusions like we did just here with the nose. So what we're going to do is select everywhere where we want to have the loop, including this bit of the jaw. Okay, now watch what happens. When we perform this extrusion, we get an extra edge loop that comes around the jaw, comes around on the face loop, comes around the jaw, and swings around to the mouth. And you'll see soon that that gives me an opportunity to form the mouth. So here we'll perform the extrusion. In fact, before I perform that extrusion, just because I know I've made some changes, let's do rebuild sim, just to make sure everything's clean. Okay. And of course save my scene. And I've been saving different versions. You can see here I'm on version 3. I'm mostly doing that to protect myself. And the second reason I'm doing that is so that I can show you guys at the end of all of this the dog at different stages. Now that I've saved, I feel confident to move forward. Again, making my selection, I want a loop that adds to the face loop and adds to the jawline and allows me to identify and separate from this corner of the box, also separate from this 5-edge point that I've just created in order to create the nose. So here we'll perform the extrusion and offset. Just offset in slightly. Notice that keeps the problem localized. And you can find different solutions like this as you model creatures and characters, and you'll find your own solutions. You'll find ones that work for you at your current level of modeling. So there's my new face loop, which I can now use to create the mouth. The mouth will be, again, following this edge. The mouth will be there, 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 and there. Looking at that in perspective, extrude that. Offset again. There's your mouth. And now it's just a matter of moving vertices. Whoops. moving vertices and matching contours and, in general, sculpting. Now I'd like to add a few more edge loops with the multi-cut tool at this point. We're going to need them for the remaining body and head. Those would be, here we added one on this side of the neck running long ways, but on the top side of the neck we did not, so we need one there. So let's add that now, and that will also give me the vertices that I need in the nose and to define jowls and jaw. Again, I have my edge flow turned not at full 1.0, but something less, about half, 0.6. And this is adding a significant number of vertices to the tail. I will inevitably and most likely rebuild the tail. But for now, it can stay over there. The eye. So the eye, I need, as I said earlier, 8 vertices coming into the eye. This one's easy to do crosswise, so let's add that one. This one's a more difficult decision. Do I do this? Do I let that go all the way around the body? Do I let that edge loop go all the way around the body? And at this point, I want to say no. So here's what I'm going to do. We saw the strategy earlier with the mouth to localize detail. We could do that here again with an extrusion. And that would be as simple as selecting polygons. Let's get to Q, hit Q so you don't move stuff around. Selecting polygons. Carefully, gently. Not those, not that. Okay, and let's go all the way to the nose, top of the nose, right there. We could extrude that. And what's the result going to be? Well, if I made my selection correct, I believe I have created, with offset, a loop. We'll use offset to start it, but we are going to have to finish it ourselves. We've basically made a loop that runs through the eye, through the ear, across the backside of the skull. Do you remember how I didn't quite match contours on the backside of the skull? I knew I was going to get this cross edge loop here. I was waiting for that one. And I get a little bit more information to articulate the nose. Perfect. And a little bit more information across the bone running from nose to eye, making that a little bit harder. Perfect. Now I just need to take time to nurture those vertices so that it's not an obvious extrusion causing flat spots in the mesh. Because right now, it just makes the mesh more square. We need to soften that up. Now, it's really cool doing extrusions like this. You can see that we could quickly grow the complexity of a mesh and be able to dictate the flow of where one edge loop is going to go for another, right? Because by the time I'm done spreading this out, I'll be able to multi-cut and split it if I want more information that way, multi-cut and split this way if I want more information, that way if I want more information. So I've got a lot of options here for adding more detail. Very cool, right? Here, be mindful of this though, and be mindful of this very much so, that each time you extrude, you are creating 5 edge stars, which are fine. However, you could accidentally say you wanted to perform an extrusion back here for some reason, or say maybe not right there, but maybe right here for some reason. And if you did that, or in any other direction, if you started to do this, you would start creating 6 edge. So if we extruded that and thickened it for some reason because you want to put horns on the dog, notice right there is a 6 edge star. That again will cause problems with texturing, painting, and so forth. So if you wanted to put some kind of bony horn right there, what you would do is split this first, then perform your extrusion to create the horn. So just be mindful that as you are dropping extrusions here and there in order to articulate your character or your fantasy character, that you are not putting them side by side like that, causing a bunch of problems in your mesh. So I spent a little bit of time moving vertices around for the eye. Let me show you what that is. So you can see I've built up the ocular around, and I've added just one more edge loop to support that shape. And you can see that that looks like here. It's just hitting Shift I, and you can see how I've brought that around the eye, and eventually the ball will sit there. And I've been working on the nose. I've been matching shapes to the nose and comparing that to the side view. Nothing added here in the nose, and now I'm about to work on the muzzle. And the same steps that I did before, I just select the part that I want to work on, and then I added the references to my selection and hit Shift I. Make sure you keep that in your selection, and then hit Shift I. In each viewport, I hit Shift I, and now I can work on that part. So the mouth right now is in the opposite shape. It should, instead of being this V shape, it should be more like an upside down V shape on the mouth. So we'll start there. Same idea with the mouth. You want to same idea with the mouth as we did with the eye, where we had the large ring around the eye initially. You want to open this up some so that you have a larger ring that comes around the mouth. So I'm just starting to capture a little bit of that upper lip folding down over the lower lip. And I did that by taking the upper edge loop of that initial mouth extrusion we made. Remember this one? From here to here that we did? It's not quite right. From there to there that we did, that one. That's the mouth. And ultimately we'll extrude that and inset it into the head so that we could build the teeth. Although I don't know if I'm going to go that far, but that's what I would do with that poly loop. And so the edge just above that one, I'm sorry, the top edge of that one is the one that I'm now currently manipulating to create that outer fold this way. And the reason I'm choosing that one is because I already have a good, strong poly loop established, where when I want to round that one out, all I have to do is split it right there, and you can see that it would begin to round out, and we'd start to see the shape of the mouth. And compare that to the side view reference. So I was sure to stay on the corner of the lip here so that it folded correctly. And I just have some vertices that are just tucking into the surface, so I just need to get in there and pull those out to get that lip. And I might have to tuck them back in a bit, but I just need to pull them out so that I can see them separate and sort of exaggerate the form for the moment. Exaggerate the shape of that lip there. Looking better. Notice I have to get to these extreme angles to make these decisions. And I think I want to focus on the muzzle again, so I'll make my selection of just the muzzle and continue this process. By this point, I've really pulled hard on these vertices to get those jowls to pull down. You see, I've really got a good pull on those shapes just to wrap that around that lower lip. And try and soften this shape here just a little. Make it a little less jagged. So you've got this one sharp shaped edge there. It's going to be a tough compromise because I've got more like a sharp polygon here. And from this angle I've got a sharp one here because everything's meeting at that junction. So we'll have to do some splitting of these polygons to help take the pressure off of this point. That's okay. We're still very low poly. Still very, very low poly. So while I'm doing this, I'm still tweaking a little bit around the nose, keeping things sharp around the nose. I'm starting to sharpen the nose, I'm preparing for edges to be inserted here and here, you see, and even right here across the nose. So I'm preparing for these by packing the neighboring edges a little tighter. I'm also preparing for another split around the muzzle. So again, keeping this information localized. Also, one of these is going to go right around, right here on the corner of the lip. See how the corner of the mouth is just two vertices? It's very hard to articulate the corner of the mouth like that. So this one that we had coming around the skull, that's going to get split in half as well. That one right there. Eventually. I still want to make some additional form changes with what I have right now before I bump up the detail again. Okay, I want you to see this. I was preparing for another edge loop, and one thing that I do often is that I test to see where I want the edge loop, like you just saw me doing. Well, here, I saw from the front view that I wanted to split here to get more information so that I could help sculpt the ins and outs of the jawline and get more of that fleshy jowls. Well, then I realized, well, I don't want that to fly around the body, so I need this one here. So to counter that, I open up the loop, even though I had just done the work of moving it, but open it up, open this one up, get these things out of the way, and go ahead and split it again. And it's getting so stressed here on the corner, I'm left with no choice but to not only insert this one, control middle click, but this one right here. And that's the one that's going to go around the head, control middle click that one. And now I have more to deal with around the head. That's okay. I could use a little more. But now I can better shape the corner of the mouth. You see now, notice, I can actually get a round shape to the corner of the mouth with that one edge loop running down the corner of the mouth. You always want one running down the length of the corner of the mouth. And now I have this extra one running on jowl. So now I've got a little bit more help in this area, and that's just fantastic. That's what I was looking for here in the front view. So I was trying to capture that sense of gravity of these jowls falling, and I wanted the edge loops to follow suit on that. And now I have a little bit less stress here, but in order to take out some of this stress on this polygon, that polygon right there I have my cursor on, take the stress out of that one, I'm going to split across the muzzle finally, control middle click. And then one more in front of the eye, control middle click. And that's going to give me a decent amount to work with. I may want one more right here cutting across the nose. Let's see exactly what that looks like. So shift I in this viewport. Number 5, turn my wireframe back on. Check my dog. It looks like he moved. Did my dog move? No, my dog didn't move. I just moved the vertices on the nose. So I was just seeing things there. I was just checking the translation to be 000, and it still is. I must have moved these vertices in one view and didn't realize they went off contours. I'm just making a selection and framing it. So I can get in here, make adjustments in perspective, because I'm looking for that indent right here in the face with a bit of flesh from the eye. So that flesh coming out from the eye right there. And then it's kind of tucked in just below that, just ever so slightly tucked in. And then it's got more of a round, bulbous cheek, skull there, and then more strong cheek skull up here. Yeah. Okay, cool. So I'm kind of bouncing around the scene a bit. I am looking at this at different angles, different perspectives, trying to capture the form by getting to these extreme angles. Plus, it's challenging to visualize what something is underneath a fold of skin. So you have to really meet that challenge by repeatedly experimenting and trying different things. Here I'm underneath, trying to capture that fold. And I'm starting to get it. I'll show you that when I pull the camera back and just take a look at it in the round, I'm getting that jowl. It's working. I'm definitely capturing it. And remember, there's a discrepancy between the front view's jowl coming way down here and the side view's jowl, which isn't nearly as low. And remember that our side view is our constant. So if there's a dispute between one view and another one, I'm going to go with the side view to resolve the dispute. And after looking at this, pulling back and looking at the poly density around the nose, I've decided that it really would be best if I turned on edge slide here and just move this new edge that I created and just pack it a little closer towards the nose, which will allow me to resolve this overly stretched out shape. And then, again, using edge slide to help reduce distortion that we've already worked on, and then divide this one more time. Insert edge loop one more time right there. And that seems like a more fair poly density and more square-like shapes. And maybe later on I'll do one more across the nose here, but I'll make that decision when I start to detail in the folds of the nose. I'm pretty happy with where I am right now with the jowl. You can see that I've spent a little bit of time here on the side matching contours to the lower fold of the jowl drooping down. So here's the upper lip curling over the lower lip, and as it swoops back up around, it's the lower lid jowl folding here. I think we can clearly see that if I just hide the mesh. Put this on the layer here. Add selected. Yeah, so we're seeing the lower lid, the lower lip of the jowl drooping here, and then the upper lid folding over the lower. And we have a good clean V shape here. I think I captured that. It could be a little bit of a stronger V shape in here. But pretty close. I'm happy with it. And you can see in the round, pulling back a bit, just taking a look at it at a decent distance here, it does feel like there's some gravity on the lips and the mouth is closed. And the mouth is actually a closed mouth, so I didn't open it up. I don't intend to open the jaw for this demonstration. So this will do very well. I used a bit of edge slide eventually because I was fairly happy with the results. Every once in a while the symmetry goes backwards. I don't quite understand why that's happening. Usually just deselecting, reselecting, and symmetry is going in the correct direction. Like if I do, meaning like if I grab a point and I move it left, it goes right. If I go right, it goes left. I don't know why that's happening. It seems like a bug more than anything. I'm not spending a huge amount of time spreading out these edges. You see how they're clustered up right here from the splits that I did earlier. I've got a trick to help clean that up, and I think I should show that to you next before we move on to the eyeball. So here's the trick. Here's the easy version of the trick. Well, first of all, delete construction history and save your scene. Here's the trick. There's a button right here called Live, and if you hover your mouse over it, it says select the mesh and run. This creates a duplicate of the mesh set to live model, useful when relaxing the mesh with Quad Draw. Quad Draw is a tool that you and I haven't used in this training yet, and we might do a little bit of that later. But understand that quad draw is useful in the retopologizing phase. What that means is taking a high polygon density mesh from something like ZBrush or Mudbox. ZBrush is my preference. Importing that to Maya, and then creating what we're creating right now on top of that high-res mesh. So basically it's like tracing the surface. So what we're going to do is use that concept. We're going to trace our own surface with a duplicate of itself. And that's what this button does. This is also written by the same student, Chris Talbot, the same guy that wrote the Rebuild Symmetry. So he took a process that I was doing step by step and consolidated it down to one click. And in the outliner, you'll notice that what'll happen is it'll create a duplicate of this object. So if we just rename that dog and then hit live, it makes a live mesh model that's hidden. That's a duplicate of what we had. So now hit your the shortcut for quad draw. I made a shortcut for it. It's right here on the modeling toolkit. The shortcut for it is the right bracket key. Hold shift and you'll see it says relax on your cursor. Okay, now turn on soft selections. B for boy, and then hold down B for boy and drag left or right, and you can see how the soft selection is growing. We should know that by now. Combine this with relax and watch these edges kind of melt away and they won't be so packed up. See that? That might screw things up a little bit on topology, so you want to be gentle with this. But you see how it just melted that away? I don't want to do it here so much. At least I don't want to do it so much with a large soft selection, maybe a small soft selection. You see how it gently softens up the mesh? So it takes a lot of those little sharp points that we can see in our mesh and it just kind of gently smudges it out a little bit, kind of like a blur in Photoshop. And if I remember correctly, this is only going to relax on one side of the mesh, so just focus on this side and then use the rebuild symmetry to move all your changes to the other side to mirror your changes. So again, be careful with this and use it what's the word I'm looking for? Use it judiciously. So be very judgmental when you're using this. Don't just go around rubbing the whole thing out. That's not going to help you. But down here, that's helpful there. Really helpful there. Helpful back here. Now, be careful. Some edges, like I just did that, I shouldn't have done that. Let me undo a couple times. So up here, I intend that to be a little sharper because that's the back of the skull. So I don't want to smooth that out completely. All right, so you can see that that saved us quite a bit of time. Now, the other cool thing about this live tool, and let's rebuild the symmetry. Perfect. Delete construction history. It's already deleted, and save my scene. What's cool about it is that it leaves this hidden mesh behind. So if you hide your current one and unhide this old one, oh yeah, and live mesh is still turned on, so you have to turn that off. So this is what it used to look like, see? It's like a record of where I was. So I'm going to hide that and unhide my new one, and that's where I am now. It's a great process. When you, as we build up more and more detail, we can use this tool to and take advantage of quad draws relax and take advantage of live modeling to expedite the process of relaxing the mesh. Inevitably, something will break your symmetry a little bit. Notice here I'm using subdivision surfaces to determine that there is a hole in my mesh. See this little arrow? And then you see this little arrow? So between here and here, this is a hole. This whole strip of edges right there is a hole. So, and I can further prove that by opening it up. See, so there is a hole there. So let's use target weld. Let's turn off soft selections. Let's use target weld to stitch that together and go to the option box for target weld and make sure it's set to center. Okay, turn off subdivision surfaces. And go ahead, zoom in real close there, and just sew those things together. There's a number of different things that can throw off symmetry. Soft selections could do it. Quad draw, relaxing could have done it. And it's easy enough to find. So go ahead and hit Q. So we still have a problem, say, right there. This one right there, because I can see these two arrows pointing at it. So it's probably right there. I just want you to see this in detail, up close. Make sure you're not welding to something else. Okay. If you can't quite get it, select them and set their absolute X value to 0. That should do it. Maybe turn off symmetry while you do it. Okay, now they're on top of each other. And now we should be able to use merge. Very low tolerance on merge, which is useful combined with a scaled up dog. Remember in the beginning I scaled up the dog to life-size scale? So now I should have no fear of this merge combining strange things together. And it looks like there's still a seam there, but that is simply the edge normal. We should be able to soften that. And that should disappear. And then check it in sub Ds one more time. Look for any little strange bumps or arrows on the surface, and I don't see any. So I just wanted you to see that in detail, how to repair a tear down the center line. And it will happen. It happens to everybody. Multiple times. Next thing up is using Live Model again with a NURBS sphere. So go to Curves and Surfaces and bring in a NURBS sphere. Move that up. Go ahead and, well, yeah, you can leave tweak mode on. Just move it up to the eye. Go to the right-hand view. All right, where is it? There it is. Move it over to the eyeball. Okay, just like that. Don't worry about moving components with this one. Just move it into place. Go ahead, rotate it forward so that the pole is facing forward, just for clarity of where the iris is. So 90 degrees on the x-axis. Go ahead and move that and scale it to fit your circle that you drew earlier. And that should be, go to the front view. We're already on the front view, aren't we? We don't need that. And get that eyeball. Another useful thing about rotating the eye, you can see the crosshair. Get that eyeball center on the front. Don't worry about the, well, you know what, don't worry about centering it on the front. Let's stay true to the right-hand side, just like we said. We said that a while ago. Okay. Now, let's see where we are. Frame that up. Number 5. All right. Now we want the dog's cranium, bone and flesh to wrap around that. Doesn't seem quite right, does it? Seems all too big. Maybe just moving it back a bit more would be helpful. That's much better. Really take your time to get a feel for this. Don't rush it. Really don't rush. Well, actually, don't rush anything in this process. You really can benefit from slow and steady. Oh yeah. Okay, that's a little bit better placement. I like that. Okay, now we just have to get that cranium to come around that shape. So let's go to the right-hand side. I already did a little bit of that work, you can see, but now that we've got the ball there, we've got something to go on. And to get this started, let me hide this camera. To get this started, I'm going to take the geometry that's on the inside of the eye and Live Model snap it to the ball itself. Alright, So if you're satisfied with where the position of the ball is, let's begin the live modeling process.